but we've stayed close friends as well as our children together. So we've gone many miles together, and I've always admired Gideon's presentation and his sharp writing and phenomenal understanding. And I thought it's important for everybody, and definitely our community, which I love and cherish, to understand the historical facts. You know, before you do a prognosis, you have to do a diagnosis. What's going on, what the problems are. What are the legal foundation of anything that takes us from here up north. So I talked with Gideon, and Gideon suggested something like the past, present, and maybe the future. So Gideon is an eloquent speaker. If people have questions, can they raise their hand? And but most of us don't have questions, we have opinion. That's who we are. Okay. But Gideon, you have to finish by 10 o'clock because in America they go to sleep early, but the stage is yours. And please give Gideon a big hand for coming.
Good evening, and thank you for coming to hear my, well, let's say, lecture or talk, because this is an informal way of speaking. About this particular topic, I just say that I'm talking, I say, with two hats in mind. One is scholarly, because as I will say, search the boundary not only of Israel. I even publish the International Encyclopedia of International Boundaries. The only one exists in the world. I publish it about all land boundary in the world. But in the other side, I also participated in some of the negotiation between Israel and Egypt, Israel and Syria, even Israel and Jordan, and Israel and Palestine, about the boundaries. So I will combine my knowledge that I got from my research and a little bit of my experience in order to present what we like to hear, I hope. Then. I will start with one special note about this. We deal with something very strange. Not only the boundary of Israel, Israel itself is a strange area, because I know about Norway, but I never heard about the land of Norway. I know about Spain, but I never heard about the land of Spain. But I know about Israel, and I know about the land of Israel, which is totally different. But we still speak about Israel and Eretz Israel, lands of Israel and Israel, which is partly a known-unknown area. Because the definition of the land of Israel is one of the major problems, even before we deal with the problem of Israel itself. But everybody knows, for example, that Hebron is part of land of Israel. But everybody recognizes that Hebron is not part of Israel, because Hebron, Nablus, Shem, Jericho are located in the land of Israel, but they are not part of the states of Israel. So even this, and I'm not talking politically, I'm talking now as it is, that's two different definitions. The land of Israel and then Israel. Now, in order to understand, because the whole problem is, because you know that some people ask that the God of Israel gave the land of Israel to the people of Israel, and again, so define what is the land of Israel. And this is a major problem. I won't say that this is one of the problems that people discuss today, but it's on the background of everything, the definition of the areas that we deal with. I can say that the land of Israel has a particular meaning and particular character, which is something that, again, we don't think about this all the time, but one of the uniqueness of this country, of this area, of this piece of land, that it is holy. And when I meant holy, and I don't go to discuss what is holiness and what is holy and how you made it, but for Jews it's a holy land, or Eretz HaKodesh, or Haaretz HaKdosha, but it's also for the Christian Holy Land, and for the Muslim, Ard al-Muqaddasi. They also look at this land as a holy land. Now, we know a lot of holy places, We know even about a lot of holy cities. But as I think, this is the only land, only country, only piece of earth which is holy land. So it's big area, modern city. We have Mecca and Rome and Jerusalem and others, but the whole area considered to be holy. And if I go a little bit to the Jewish way of thinking about the Holy Land, what is the definition of Eretz Israel? Basically, we have three different definitions. One, of course, is something that a lot of us know from the Bible, that the promised land, as we call it sometimes, that go from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates and Prat, there between the Nile and the Euphrates River. This is the promised land. But according to the way of the halakha, I would say, this is for the time of the Messiah. So it's not so important to deal with this, what is this, although some people in Israel base their claim for the country on this promised land, that God promised this land to us, and this has to be us because it's made by God. So it's something to make definition, but this definition, the geographer, we know the south, we know the north. Maybe the west is the sea, but the east is not known by this description. But anyhow, let it be like this. But there are other definitions, which it's called the land of the tribes of Israel, or the land of those who came from Egypt, which is totally different. It's only the land that were, I would say, established by the Jews who came from Egypt, if they ever came from Egypt, because some of you know that now there are totally different idea of how this thing happened or not happened, but again, it's not important. This is the notion. And this is one thing very interesting. Part of the holiness of the countries, you might know this, is that Jews like to be buried, sorry to deal with such a thing, like to be buried in Israel. Through all history, Jews tried to be buried in Israel, on the land of Israel. Partly because we know that in the last day, the last judgment would be in the land of Israel, in Jerusalem, so you want to be there close, because some say the problem is not what you will get, the problem is to stand in the queue till you have it. But other thing was that according to Jewish tradition, only in the land of Israel people know how to bury and mark the burial place. All other area are all the world they don't know how, so the whole area is not holy. So this is why, as you might know, when Jews come to a cemetery, he close in hand, and Kohen can't go there because it's a holy place. And Jews want to be buried in Israel. Now, some of you know, for example, a nice city north of Haifa called Akko. According to the definition from the Bible, Akko is not part of the land of Israel. It's not part of the land of Israel, and the whole area from Akko north, Nahariya and other areas are not part of the Holy Land according to the Bible. So Jews for centuries who live in Acre didn't bury themselves in Acre. They went 10 kilometers east to a big Arab village called Kfar Yassif and established there a cemetery, and they've been buried there for hundreds of years, because Acre is not part of the Holy Land. It's not only Acre, it's other area. So this is the second definition. But the most important religious definition, which is up to date exists, is what we call the area of those who came from Babylonia. This is the area which part of Judaism, you might know, had some mitzvot, some things that you can do, and you have to do only in the land of Israel. The most known is what we call the Shemitah, which is in the 7th year. You don't cultivate it your area, and you can't eat what is made by Jews. And there are definitions of this particular area. And this exists up to date. Although it was established about 1800 years ago, Still people in Israel, especially the religious people, even the kibbutzim and others, don't cultivate the land in the 7th year, it was a year before, and Jews, religious Jews, don't eat something that are produced by Jews in the land of Israel, up to now. And there are others. Now, according to this definition, for example, the whole area from the Dead Sea up to Eilat are not considered to be the land of Israel. And the kibbutzim and the moshavim there can produce things during the year of Shemitah, and people on Bnei Brak and Mea Shearim can eat it. This is very known. But what is less known, I think that some of you heard about Gush Katif, the area that we settled in the Gaza Strip, and then we evacuated this area. This is not Eretz Israel according to the halacha, according to the Jewish law. And the people who settled there have even a letter from the chief rabbi saying, you are not part of Eretz Israel, so you can cultivate your land during the Shemitah year and other. Of course, when they evacuated, they made, you are not allowed to evacuate Jews from Eretz Israel and something like this, but they were not part of Eretz Israel. They knew it, but most people of Israel didn't know it at that time, and it was a big row about this. So it's a problem, the definition of the, let's say, the halacha or the Jewish law concerning the land of Israel, totally different from the states of Israel. Eilat is not part of Eretz Israel, and Beersheba is still there, but even the whole Gaza Strip, for example, according to the Jewish halacha, is not part of Eretz Israel. I'm not going to deal with this more. It's a problem. It's still a lot of people who deal with this have their definition, produce even map, which not coincident with the boundary of Israel. So even to those people, there is a problem to define Eretz Israel, to define what is concerning Eretz Israel, or what was promised to us by God, that what is ours and what is not ours. But it's not only for us, because as you know, Terra Santa, or Holy Land, is all holy for the Christian. So ask a pastor, ask a priest, where is the boundary of the Holy Land? Of course, Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem is there. Beersheba is part of the Holy Land. Mitzpe Ramon is part of the Holy Land. They don't know. They don't know because they have no definition of the Holy Land. They know holy cities, but not the Holy Land. And it's the same with the Muslims. And I'm not talking politically. Ask an imam, what is the definition of Palestine or Ard al-Makadasi? Again, he had, I would say, everybody has his definition of the land of Israel. So this is one thing which is totally different from all other things, and this is even before we start to deal with the boundary. But the boundary of land of Israel, this is one thing that we had to consider it. Now when we come to Israel as a state, it's another strange thing about Israel. Because when we deal about boundary, we deal with what we call international boundaries. Now, international boundaries that is part of agreement between two states, that this line defined between this state and this state. So this is international boundary, which is part of the legal documentation that made between the two states. Now we have in our world now about, I would say, 200 independent countries. There are some countries which have not yet independence, and between them there are about 300 land boundaries. Most of them are settled now. We know, although here and there are some problem to define if this hill belongs to us or to belong to them, but basically all the boundaries in the world are defined, except the boundary of Israel. Because Israel has today only, as I can say, 1.5 boundary. We have one boundary, international boundary, that we settle with Egypt. We settled in Egypt in the peace agreement with Egypt in 1979, and we have the boundaries that go from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, defined, marked on maps on the land. This is international boundary except by the two countries. With Jordan, we have some problem. Although we had peace agreement with Jordan, and we signed an agreement with them, but there's one problem. And the one problem is, okay, we know that Jordan go up to the Jordan River. But who settled west of the Jordan River? That's meaning Jericho area and other area. To whom it's belong? It's not Israel. Israel never declared that this area, Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, is part of Israel. So where is the the western boundary of Jordan? On the Jordan River, with whom? So we have with Jordan boundaries that go in the north from near the Sea of Galilee up to Beit Shean area, and from the middle of the Dead Sea till the Red Sea. But the area between them are not considered boundary, because they are not official country in the western side of the Jordan River. This is why, for example, if you are coming to Israel, and me an Israeli want to go to Jordan, and I live in Jerusalem, I can't go to Jericho and Allenby Bridge, which is the shortest way to Amman. I had to go to Eilat and cross the boundary in Eilat, or go to the north and cross the boundary to Jordan in this area, because all the middle area are not settled as a boundary. The Jordanians say, decided who is west of the Jordan, then we will sign with him peace. Now, cartographically, in maps, usually maps, boundary appears or in red color or in black color. They appear in red color when roads appear in black. They appear in black color when roads appear in red. So it's red or black. International boundary usually in map is this color. Now, go back. What we have now between Israel and Lebanon? We don't have boundary. We don't have boundary between Israel and Lebanon. We had a boundary, we'll see it later on, that was established in the 30s between British Palestine and French Lebanon and Syria. This became an armistice line after 48, we see it later. But then Israel entered Lebanon in 1982, and we settled there for nearly 18 years. When we dropped ourselves from Lebanon, Israel and United Nations decided of a line that it's called now officially Line of Withdrawal of Israel Defense Army. It's not a boundary. It's line according to United Nations. This is the official name of this line, Line of Withdrawal of IDF force into Israel. It's nearly like the international boundary, but not exactly the international boundary. It was done between Israel and the United Nations. Lebanon was not part of this. Lebanon never agreed to this. This is why the Hezbollah says that Israel is still partly in Lebanon, because some stretch of land, United Nations allowed us to have, because of some important local importance there. This line is marked on map with blue color, which is the color of the United Nations. And in the area, there in the north, a lot of sign color with blue color to show where the boundary is. So we had a blue line. Now with Syria, we have not even a boundary, not even an armistice boundary. We have a line, it's called the line of separation between army, which was established in 1974 after the Yom Kippur War, and it's marked on the map with purple color. And we all know about the green line. So we have red and black and blue and purple and green, multicolor area, psychodalic, totally psychodal. This is the only country in the world that still don't have boundary. There is one country which have the same, and this is South Korea, which is boundary with North Korea, it's not yet settled. It's still an armistice line, as they call it. But Israel, for all sides, we are a country without boundaries. And again, this is the only country in the world that exists like this. I can tell you that once I wrote a book in Hebrew concerning the boundary, and I want to call it, it's nice in Hebrew to say, Eretz lelo gvulot, no boundary found. And they said, no, this is too much, because without boundary, it's not only the line boundary. So they told me to call it multi-boundary area. Okay, in Hebrew, Eretz rabat gvulot. So this is one thing that also we are waiting to have boundary with Lebanon. We are waiting to have boundary with Syria. We are waiting to have boundary with the Palestinians if and when. So this is the basic idea how it there. So in order to show you how it came to be, I will try to start there. Can you put the first one? The whole story started about 100 years ago, or 110 years ago. This was Palestine in the Ottoman area in 1914, before the First War. The whole area of the Middle East was part of the Ottoman Empire. Palestine never existed. That means officially there were not any part of land that had the name Palestine or Palestine or Palestina, in which name, because according to the Turkish, the Ottoman administrative area, we have two vilayet, which is provinces. One was called Eshams, Syria Eshams, that was here, and one called Beirut, which was here. Now, these were divided into districts. In the Turkish Sanjak, we have the Sanjak of Acre, the Sanjak of Nablus, Shechem of the modern, and here, and Jerusalem area, Jerusalem, Jaffa, and Gaza here and Beersheba was a separated area because of its holiness, which is called El-Quds, which is the holy, which is the name of Jerusalem in Arab. So this whole area, the name Palestine never exists in this. And Palestine never exists, although the world, especially the Western world, know about Palestine, about the Holy Land. But in order to understand what is this, I will try to see what was written in different encyclopedia before 1914 to describe the area. So, according to the Encyclopedia Americana, this is the line of. According to a Russian encyclopedia, this is the line. According to French, this is the line. According to Spanish, this is the line. Every country, of course, everybody had his notion, but I tried to look at it, let's say, official encyclopedia. Everybody gave different area. Give the other, just to see, I continue. This is a Jewish encyclopedia, which was published in 1910, even in Yiddish and then in Hebrew. This is a British Encyclopedia Britannica, and this is during the late 19th century, researcher from the Palestine Exploration Fund mapped the area, and they put their maps according to this. So before First World War, the whole area, which is now Palestine or Eretz Israel, was known as the area, but nobody know where it is. Nobody had clear definition what it is. And this is only 100 years ago. So we know about this from the biblical time, even before a lot of names could it, but the definition was not known. So the whole story started, although one line was established in 1906, and this is this line that goes there between Israel and Egypt. This line was established between the British, who settled in Egypt at that time, and the Ottoman Empire, because they have a previous boundaries that go there, and the British want this line to be removed out of Suez Canal, so they pressed the Turkish, and the Turkish, at that time, the Ottoman Empire was nearly collapsed, so they agreed to have a line that ran like this, from Rafah here to Taba here, and this is the first line that established here, 1906, October 1906, was established there. not as a boundary, but as, they call it, administrative separated line. Because officially, Egypt was still part of the Ottoman Empire. Although it served like a boundary, but all other lines that we know here never exist. Then came the First War. And the First War brought two major things concerning Palestine, even three. And I say Palestine because at that time this was there. I had to present myself now. I'm a Palestinian. I'm a Palestinian, like Avi. Because when we were born, the country was called Palestine. And I have birth certificate issued by the government of Palestine. So I'm a Palestinian. The Palestinians don't like to hear it. But I am a true Palestinian. You are a true Palestinian, right? Maybe some of us there is also. So, but Palestine didn't exist, not on map, not officially. Then came the First War.
Which war? 48? Which war?
Before 19, the First War.
First World War.
First World War. Okay, sorry. When I say First World War. Now, the First World War bring a lot of change. First of all, the Turkish and the Ottoman Empire collapsed and really disappeared. Like the German Empire, like the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, like the Russian Empire. And one of the outcomes of the war was what we call the 14 points of President Wilson, that with this he entered the war. And one of the very important point, he says that we are not sending American soldiers to fight in Europe, that France and England will hold land that they will occupy with our soldier. That means from this moment, it became known that you are not allowed to annex areas that you are conquered during the war. This was established at that time. Not particularly accepted by whole world, but from then onward we have this notion. You are not allowed, even if you were attacked by and you succeed to push them and enter, you are not allowed to annex area for themselves. This means that the whole area of the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, couldn't be part of the British and the French and others that occupied it. Mainly the British Army that occupied it by General Allenby. So to whom the areas belong, this came what we call now the self-determination. The area belonged to the people who live there. And this is the notion. So, in Europe, it works. Because after the First World War, a lot of new countries were established in Europe according to the definition of the nations that were there. If we go from north to south, Finland, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Lithuania, Lithuania, Estonia, all those areas were part of the empire that collapsed, and national states were established there according to the what is Poland? Poland is where the Polish are there. What is Lithuania? Lithuania is where the Lithuanian people are there, and so on and so forth. They came to this area and say, okay, this area had to be area of its people. But, just a minute before it, during the war, before the American joined, there were some agreements between the side who fought here. Can we have one? One is very, very known, which called Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916 between the French and the British. What to do with the Middle East when the war will be ended. They say they allocated the bear head skin, as they said, before they went to hunt it. Because at that time, no one British or French soldier was in the Middle East. And the Turkish pushed them all out from Egypt, in Gallipoli, in other areas. But they decided to divide the Middle East between them. And this is the division of the area, this is the whole area, division of the area which is now around Palestine. So according to this small part here, Haifa and Acre and the area around, would go to the British. It would be part of the British Empire. The whole area which is dotted here, from this line north up to Lebanon Wall, would go to France. Now, the whole area here, which is east of the big rift here, Damascus and Haleb, what is Syria now, would be an independent Arab state with French advisors. This is how they call it. All the area, this area here, which means the whole Negev of today and Jordan up to Iraq, would be an Arab independent state with British advisor. And the area around here, the white area here, would be international area. But what mean international area? Not of what we call today international area. It would be area that would be ruled by France, Britain, Russia, and Italy, which were all part of this agreement later on agreed, and representative of the Muslim Arabs that will have independence in this area, because this is the Holy Land. Jews were not part of this agreement. So French, Russian, British, and Italian would have control of this area as international area because of the holy places of this area. When they say, just say that, Britain, France, Italy, and Russia, it's not only the 4 countries that fought together. It's more than this. It's the 3 sects of Christianity. It's the Catholic, which were presented by Italy and France, is the Protestant, which were by the British of the Anglican Church, and Russia, which represent the Orthodox, the Provoslavs and others. So all those sects were to rule this area. This was one thing. But later on, we got, as you mentioned before, the Balfour Declaration. Now, the Balfour Declaration was given to the Jews. Again, if we'll have a time, we will deal with the Balfour Declaration, how it came to be, but I will just say my way of thinking about this, why the Balfour Declaration was given. And this is for a little bit proud or not proud of self. You know that in the late 19th century, a book was published in Russia, which called the Books of the Story of the Elders of Zion. How the elder Jews sat in cellars and arranged to control the whole world by the money, by this. This was the most dangerous book for us before Hitler came with his Mein Kampf. And it's up to now sold all over the Arab world and other world as the most anti-Semitic book. But this book was also a very good book for us as a Jew. Why? He say, okay, if you want to get rid of this problem, try to destroy the whole Jews. But if you can't do it, better join them. Because they are really ruling the world. And if you want to do something, better had a Jewish people with you, because they control the world. Which I can say it's true up to now. We control the world. We control the world. Who is the daughter of Trump and Kushner and other, and in Britain and in France, we always, the Metro Goldwyn Mayer and Rothschild and all other, we control the world. This is our secret. We know that it's not true, but they think that this is true. So this is one thing. And this is what the British thought at that time. Because when was the Balfour Declaration was issued? 2nd November 1917. What happened in this particular time? This is the Russian Revolution. The same day. Now, who conducted the Russian Revolution? Who was there in the Politburo? Mr. Trotsky, a Jew, Kamenev, Zbigniew, Kaganovich, 10 people of the Politburo were Jews at that time. There's even a Jewish joke that says that once Trotsky started to give a presentation, so Kamenev told him, please, make it short, I have a yahrzeit. And he told him, wait a minute, the Goy will go, Lenin, and we have a minyan here. And this was true, because at that time, this was the vision that the Jews are controlling the world. And the British want the support of the Jews of Russia and the Jews of America. In 1917, there were about 500,000 Jews in the United States, but they have a judge in the High Court. In the Supreme Court, Mr. Brandeis, and then Frankfurter. They 500,000 Jews, but they have one in the Supreme Court at that time. So they want that the Jews of America will persuade the Americans to join the war, and the Jews of Russia will persuade the Russian not to go out of the war, which she did at that time. And this is the main reason why we had this Balfour Declaration, which say, as I will say, that British government will, I would say, support the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Not Palestine as a Jewish homeland, but in Palestine. And the British were good lawyers. When they say in Palestine, it could be Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and that's all. It's still valid. They don't say the whole Palestine would be like this, but this was rely about this in this area. So we have, when the war ended, we had the American 14 points, we have the Sykes-Picot Agreement, we have the promise for the Jews, so what to do?
So what is the story about Weizmann? We want us to thank Weizmann for the explosives that...
You learn it in the kindergarten. This is there. This is there. Nothing to do. Yes, Weizmann helped them, and the story is that he helped them to have the acetone that is there, and Balfour asked him, what you want for this? Oh, I want it. Nothing like this happened, but it's a very nice story. And some of my friends say, why you come with the fact? The story are more beautiful. So say the story, but this is how it came to be. So what happened after the war, that the whole nation established themselves in the Paris Peace Conference?
Are there documents that the Russian Revolution, that they wanted to please the Jews in the Politburo? Is that...
Well, it was even before, but they know that the Russian Jews are very, very involved in the revolution. And they really know, and we have this document, that they thought that by this they could. Of course, it was Zionism also in England, a lot of things, but this is part of the thing. So let's go again and come to this Paris Peace Conference. And they decided there that, as I say before, the nations that could be independent state will have their state. But in the Middle East, they decided that the area is not developed enough, and the people, and I try to citate as well, cannot control themselves in the harsh condition of the modern world. In order to say that, not so developed, primitive, but so they need to have a guardian that will be their apotropos, like a kid that his parents died and left him with some money or that. So they made some guardian that will take care of him, teach him, and when he go to maturity, give him the money. So this was the whole idea, to allocate the Middle East to. It belonged to the people who live there, but they can't control themselves. So we will give this area for developed country that will teach the people how to govern themselves, and after some year we'll give them independence. And this was called the mandate system. This is the mandate system. And the League of Nations at that time decided to give the French mandate above Syria and Lebanon, and to British mandate about Palestine and Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia is the Greek name of the area between the river, Mesopotamus, which is today Iraq. So, but this was the old name, so Mesopotamia and Palestina. Now we go to the beginning of the lecture. Okay, where is Palestine? The British would have. What is the boundary of this Palestine? What is the boundary of Lebanon, or Syria, or Mesopotamia? Nobody knows. They decided at that time, and they let the British and the French decided what would be the boundary of their area. That means that the British and the French had to allocate it between them a line between Syria and Lebanon on one side, Iraq, Mesopotamia, that became Iraq, and Palestine on the other side. And then the British had to decide where is Palestine and Iraq, where is the boundary between them, and the French between Syria and Lebanon. So how it came to be, it started a lot of discussion in the area. First, the British occupied this area and established here what they call occupied enemy territory south in 1918. They divided the area into three occupied area, north for the French, east for the Arab, and this was there, that means without the Galilee area, because this is the Hula Lake with those. So this was the I would say the area of the military regime in 1918 till 1920. This was one way. And then they called the people of the Middle East and asked them, what do you want? What do you want to have for your country? Because we don't know the League of Nations. So from our area came five representatives. Two is not for important to us. There were the Armenian and the Kurds. They came to ask for land for themselves. The Arabs came, the Maronite from Lebanon came, and they invited the Zionist organization, which was the second most important part of the history of the establishment of the State of Israel, because the Kurds, the Armenian, the Arab, the Maronite settled here for hundreds of years. Zionists were not here, Jews were not here. In Palestine there were at that time about 50,000 people. All the Jews were all dispersed all the world. But the United Nations, at that time the League of Nations, recognized and accepted the right of the Jews to come to live in Palestine. So they invited the Zionist organization to present what is the boundaries that you want to have. It doesn't say that we will give you to, but to here. And the Zionist proposal was based on water, transport, agriculture, land. Because the whole idea was, we have to take all the Jews into Palestine. They have to have some means of living in Palestine. At that time, the idea was to develop agriculture. So what we need is water, what we need is land, and what we need is transportation. So, can I say? This is what really the Zionists ask for having this. It's the lines that go from near Sidon here, go along this line. They never present a map, they just present a written document. We want the line that go from here to here, from here to here, from here. And they say the north, because here we have the land, but the water is there because this is a desert area. So we want to take all the water from the north and bring it to the south to develop modern agriculture. We didn't think about high-tech at that time and not other thing. We need the wheat area of the Golan area there. We need the transportation of the Hejaz Railway, and we need access to the Red Sea in order that we can make, in 1919, we can make relation with the Far East to bring all the car to, have you been in Eilat? Half of the car of Europe comes through Eilat to this by this port from here. So this was the Zionist proposal, or I would say asking. League of Nations took it, put it in the shelf, and nobody knows about it. But everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about it because this is the base of what people in Israel at that time, in Palestine, and even now, think that this is what we have to have. What is the hymn of the right-wing party, of Herut party? Shtei gadot layarden. Two banks for the Jordan River. Both of belong to us. Here the river Jordan, both belong to us. The other side, the leftists, the Palmach, the Haganah, saying, Mimetula ad Negev, from Metula to the Negev, Mihayam, from the sea, ad Hamidbar, to the desert, not to Judean desert, to the Syrian desert. So this is the notion that we had at that time, and later on that this is what has to be. And this became very, maybe too sarcastic to say, but we developed this notion. All what we ask and didn't get, that means that they took it from us. This is it. This is it. When we enter Lebanon, we say, well, Lebanon, we call the Galilee, the Israeli Galilee and the Lebanon Galilee, because we want this area. So this is it. But more important, the Arab says that this is the whole idea of the Zionists from 1917 up to now. And the whole history of the area from 1917 is the trying of the Jews to have this area. So, as we will see later on, in 1937, the British give part of this area to the proposed Jewish state. We'll see it in a little moment. It was not enough. So the Israeli arranged the War of Independence, the 48 War, and they occupied more area. And they settled for 19 years, and then they organized the 67 War, which occupied more area. And then in 82, they entered Lebanon in order to have the northern part area. This is the story that he told in the Arab world. Now try to deny it, because this is exactly what happened. Not that anybody think about this, but this is the way they look at this. That Israel want to expand and expand and expand and expand. They even took the Sinai, okay, they give it back because they didn't need it. But they don't want to give this, they don't want to give the Golan Heights, because this is part of the area. So, narrative, what?
Is Bibi know this?
Of course he know it. Of course he know it. But this is the Arab narrative. I can't say that this is the real history, but this is the Arab narrative. He is for Shtei Gadot LaYarden. He settled, okay, in this time let's have this. But they still sing about this. In the hymn of the Likud, they still sing it in every year. So we have this notion of this. As I said before, the British or the League of Nations took this, put it chef, say Britain and France decided what is the area. So start negotiating between British and the French. We were not involved in this. We tried to persuade the British. At that time, we were with the British, and we pushed the British to try to have as much as they can, as could be part of this. And just to show you, this was some idea of the British Foreign Office to present a boundary like this. Most of the British didn't think that the southern area, the Negev, should be part of Israel. So this is one suggestion that some people from the Foreign Office tried to show. And this is some discussion about how to draw the southern line of Israel between different parts of the British government and British army people and other, like this, like this, like this, like this. At the end, they adopt the old line. But there were a lot of this is part of the original maps that established there. So this was there, and go again. In the southern area, we have line first. This line goes like this, and then we settle for a line that goes like this. Again, all arrangement. So here, this was the only line that established as international line, because it was decided by two independence country, let's say France here and Britain here, they decided about the line. So the lines that go from Ras El Nakua, Rosh Hanikra, to Metula, to go there around, this is the only international line, but the British decided to adopt the Jordan River as the boundary and adopt the old Egyptian Palestine boundaries. So at the end we have, come there, we have this Palestine, the British Palestine. Again, you don't go there. As we know, this is the area that we know. Now in the world, this is Palestine. Every historical boundary, every same thing that happened in the past never exists anymore. Only in atlas, in books and other, but this is the notion that what the British decided in 22 with the French or between themselves, this is Palestine. And the whole question is about this. But these boundaries bring about one very important thing. This boundary created the Palestinian nation. Because who are the Palestinians? The Palestinians are those people who lived in this area between 1918 and 1948. Those are the Palestinians. Because when they established the line here, a village that was here became Lebanese. A village that was here for hundreds of years, they were 5 kilometers wide. Now they became Palestinian and they became Lebanese. And they became Syrian and then became Jordan and then became Egyptian. So by those lines, the nation of the Middle East were established. Who are the Iraqis? Who are the Syrian? Who are the Lebanese? There are only those who settled in the area that designated by those lines. So those are the Palestinians. Because before this, nobody talked about Palestinian because Palestine didn't exist, as I showed you before. So the whole notion of Palestinians started in the 20s after this boundary were established. According to the British idea at that time, this area should be part or should be allocated for the Jewish national home. We accept it, although we continue to think about two banks for the Jordan, but we as a whole accepted this. And for 10 years we put all the Zionist mind in order to develop this area, to bring as much immigrant that could be, all what happened there. We accept it, the British accept it, but the Arab never accept
But they
it.
called it Palestine.
They call it officially, you say, this is very nice that you say. The British established in Palestine the system of 3 languages: English, Arabic, and Hebrew. So English was the language of the governor. Arabs, which settled at that time, 85% of the people were Arabs, so there were very small number of Jews. Half of them speak Yiddish, the other half speak Ladino or Arabic. Nobody spoke Hebrew, only in the some of the Moshavot and other, but the British accept Hebrew as official language. And you mentioned stamps, in all stamps, in all coins, well, the 3 languages. But in English it was Palestine, in Arabic it was Palestine. The Zionists at that time want it to be called Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel. The British say up to this. And they decided to call it Palestina. They wrote it with sin, with shin, Palestina, open mark, Aleph Yud. That means Eretz Israel. And the official name was Palestinia I. And of course we say I, as we know it's I. But even the people there say even the I, the Aleph Yud, is the 3 language. Because we say, the Jews say, Eretz Yisrael. The Arabs say Eretz Yishmael. And the British say Anachnu Yodim. We know. So this is the Aleph Yud that was there. So this is the name. Yeah, was the official name, Palestine. But this holds true for, let's say, 15 years. And then in 36, the Arab revolt against the British and against others. They even had some other revolt in 2021, 29, but in 36 it was big revolt all over against the British and against that. And the British had this idea, which is still there, whenever you have problem, send a research committee. Vadat Hakira to deal what to do with this. And they said a royal commission to investigate the problem of Palestine, what to do with this. And it was not sent by the government, it was sent by the king. So it didn't have, I would say, instruction from the British government. They were totally independent. And they come with the idea, Britain cannot hold the country anymore. Britain had to finish its holding of the country and divided the country between the Jews and the Arab. They published their recommendation in July 1937, and I mention it because from then onward, as we will see it together and you know it, we just try to find the right line of separation. Because for 70 years we start, or 80 years, now nearly 90 years, or 80 years, we try to find the line. What this commission suggests, please, go and this is not so important, this is how, this is the official map that they present. They took the map of Palestine, draw a red line, and say the whole area west of the red line would be the Jewish state, which is about 17% of Palestine done by this. 1937. As I said, from then onward, we try to find the line. According to me, when we will settle the line, most of the problem would disappear. But this is only my way of thinking. At that time, the British government accepted, but tried to destroy the whole idea, and they sent another commission to draw the line, and this commission came with the idea that you can't draw a line, so it's not. But what was the idea here? They say that there are two main ideas here, which is still up to now exist. First, the area where Jews are settled would be part of the Jewish state. The area where the Arabs settled, it would be part of the Arab state. Very, very simple understand. But the whole idea of the Zionists was to bring all the Jews, or as much Jews as they can come to be settled there. And they can't take the situation in 1936 and say this is the end of the... So they try to find a place where it's not settled by the Jews, but give it to the Jews that would come. And by this they give the whole Galilee area. The Galilee area at that time, there was only one Jewish settlement west of Safad, of course was here, and it was there, but whole this area up to, we have only one settlement there, and this is Nahariya, that was established in 34. So they say that all this area would become part of the Jewish states, and what to do with the Arab who live there? Transfer them to the Transjordan. Transjordan, which will be part of the... At that time, by the way, this was after all the transfers that happened in Europe between Greece and Turkey and other areas, it was accepted that people will move in order to make the country like this. The Zionists accept the idea, but not the line. And they try to show the line, but they accept the idea of partition the country, which is very important. From then onward, let's say the leadership of the Zionist organization accept the idea of partition the area between us. Not according to this line, but the partition. The Arab, of course, refused to accept any idea of even one square acre, 1 acre that would be independent Jewish state. So they just refuse it.
Question.
Yeah, please.
So, but when you say that the Zionist movement accepted the idea of partition,
yes,
but that wasn't universally accepted. It was only part of the Zionist movement, right? The people in Beirut or whatever.
Well, you see, you have coalition, you have opposition, you have this, you have this, but the organization of the Zionists, they said they had a conference after this and discussed for Ussishkin were against it and others were against it, but at the end they accept the notion and they let Ben-Gurion and Weizmann to settle with the British about the line. But the whole notion was accepted. Okay, in order that we will have a state, 2 years before the Second World War and others, so in order to have, let's have it.
But the revisionists agreed?
The revision didn't agree. The revision said not even this is not enough. They want this also. There were all other. The most prominent against were not the revision, were the religious people, which say, well, this is the promised land. We can't give it to them. But they decided then, politically, we accept the idea. This is it. They suggest this partition. Again, it's a little bit mixed, but the whole idea was that all the dotted area here would be a Jewish state. That means not only this, but all this area, even part of Transjordan, would be a Jewish area. All this area would be Arab area, and all this area would be under British. Jews could settle there, and 10 years later they will discuss it again. This even included part of Jerusalem. It's there. So this was the suggestion of the Zionist organization at that time, but again it came to the British, and the British, but it brings another idea which is still exists in Israel, and this is one of the main problems. Because from this moment, the Zionist leader then understood, according to them, that whenever we will settle, it will be other. It will be ours. Because if you can go backward, we mainly settled here, in this area, and they suggest to give it to us. So from then onward, we say, because we settled here during the 20s, 30s because of economic purpose, because this was the best area for settling, because we found a lot of land, empty land, the Arab didn't want to live there because of the swamp, other area, it was good for us. So it was made, we settled where we could develop this area. From this moment, we decided to build settlement in the area that we want to have it. Up to now. Up to now, this is the area. We don't think about what would be the best place for a settlement, but what would be the best place of settlement according to our needs for the whole country. So this is the settlement in Judea, Samaria, West Bank, Golan Heights and other. It started in 1937. And the notion, as they say, that the plow will determine the line. Where we will have our land area that we are settled there, this would be our line. And we still think about this. People still think about this, wherever we will settle will be ours. It started here. Okay. 10 years later, this is how they manage the boundary in the south. It's not so important. Okay. 10 years later, the British, after the war, get rid of the whole idea, and they decided to give the mandate that they got in 1920 to give it back to United Nations. They say in 1920 you give us mandate to rule the area. We can't do it. And we can't do it because of democracy. Why because of democracy? They say, if we go to the promise to give this land to the Jews were only about a third of the population, and if we give the area to the Jews, it will not be fair. Why the third will control the 2/3 of the country? But if we give it to the area that one man, one vote, this is the end of Zionism, this is the end of the idea of Jewish state, because the Arab, by majority, democratic majority, decided that they don't want any other Jew to come there. So this was the problem that the British couldn't solve. They tried to, as we saw, to make partition. It didn't work. So they decided to give the United Nations. That time, by the way, they left India, they left Ceylon, they left Burma, so this area was not so important to them. They give it to United Nations. United Nations again send here commission to find the area, to discuss, to find, and at the end, at 29 November 1947, this partition, as they say, Palestine Plan of Partition, was accepted by the United Nations General Assembly, which says that the blue area would be Jewish, the orange area would be Arab, and the small white area here would be international. That means Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and area around, not to the Jewish state, not to the Arab states, but would be international, governed by the United Nations. How they managed to do here, from here to here, the Arab could go by one road that goes there, and the Jews will go by one road that goes there. The same here, the Jews will have a road, the Arab would have road here, the Jews would be road here. According to this, about 300,000 Arab would stay in the Jewish area, in the Jewish state, and they declare partition between an Arab state and a Jewish state. Not state of all its citizens, not state. Arab state, here it's written. Arab state and Jewish state. In English and in French. Because this was the official language there. 300,000 Arab would live in the state of Israel. About 25,000 Jews in 20 different settlements would be in the Arab state. How? This is something that not many took place, with economic union. The whole idea was that these two states will have economic union. So by this, Jews can live in the Arab state, Arab can live in the Jewish state, and they have, okay. And they wrote a lot of documents how to do it, but this was the idea of the partition, which never existed, of course. Because again, the Jews at that time, after this, in the night of 29 November, everybody go to the street and dance all night. We have a state, this is it. Only Ben Gurion say, okay, now we had to prepare for war. So he said in his memoir, he never,
What year?
This is November 47.
He said that.
29 November 47, 1947. This is the partition, this is this. This is what they call Resolution 181 of the United Nations. So this is what happened. The minute it came, start the war. Because the Arab refused to have it, and at that time they start to attack the Jews, the Jewish transportation, Jewish settlement, Jews there, and for 4 months it was a fighting between the local Jews and the local Arabs, which at the end of this, in May 48, the local Arab force really disappeared. All the Arab from Safad, from Tiberia, from Haifa, from Jaffa, Israeli army, not Israeli, the Haganah army at that time, conquered this area. They conquered the Gush Etzion settlement, but the local Arab countries, local Arab people were defeated. And Israel established itself as a state in 14 May 48, and in 15 May midnight, between 40 and 15, the Arab army from the country around invaded Palestine. And then start the war between Israel and its neighbor. Not between Israel and the local Arab, between Israel and its neighbor, and which lasted for about, I would say, as a whole, it lasted about 9 months, but for the first 6 months between May 46 to October 46, which ended with ceasefire. The Arab couldn't destroy the states of Israel. Israel held part of this area, more than only the blue area, but part of the orange area here, here in the Galilee, and part here. But the Egyptian army occupied part of the area from the boundary up to here, which is now called Gaza Strip. What is Gaza Strip? Gaza Strip is the area conquered by the Egyptian in the War of 48 from Palestine. From whom he conquered it? From the Arab state, which would be. So the Egyptian occupied this area, while the Jordanian army, the Arab Legion as they call, conquered the West Bank. So what is the West Bank? The West Bank is the area conquered by the Jordanian and the Iraqi army. Which helped them, the Iraqi conquered this area, the Jordanian this area, half of Jerusalem, while we took the other half of Jerusalem, and by this, the West Bank was established. Palestinians were not involved in the discussion after the war, which brought about what we called the armistice line. After the war, this is the first armistice agreement. It's official member. I just brought it into show because here Moshe Dayan and Colonel Jundi are signing this map, which show the boundary that was here. It's not so important to see, just a historical document. And if you go one more, this is the final armistice of 49. This is Gaza Strip, this is the West Bank, this is the green line, which it became green just because they marked the line in green pencil. But this it became a green line. A lot of people say that this is settled area, not settled area, this is cultivated area, not cultivated, nothing. It's just they used the green pencil to mark the line. So Israel got about 80%, let's say about 80% of the land of Palestine, British Palestine. The Jordan got the West Bank, which is about 18%, and the Egyptian, the 2%, which is Gaza Strip. The Egyptian held the Gaza Strip as occupied area, according to international law. You can conquer it, but you can't annex it. But Jordan annexed the West Bank. Illegally, even for the Arabs. No, only 2 countries in the world accept the annexation of the West Bank to Jordan.
Israel.
Britain and Pakistan. For all countries of the Britain, which stood behind King Arab, and Pakistan. No Arab country accept this annexation. They even thought that they will push the Jordan from the Arab League, because not only they did it against the United Nations idea, they annexed areas that was designated to be an Arab state. Arab states, Palestine of course, but according to United Arab states. So they annexed this area, while Israel annexed all the areas that was designated to be in the Arab states, but stay in Israeli force. That means part of the Negev, the Galilee, and other area. So this is what we call the Green Line. This settled for 19 years. 19 years we lived like this. There was some problem along the boundary, especially in the 50s from Gaza Strip and from the West Bank. This is Israel 49-67, as you can see, Gaza Strip here, West Bank here. This is the line. we lived quite nicely in this area. Here and there were some clashes, especially in the 50s, but then in 56 we have what we call the Sinai campaign, when we, in October 56, occupied the Sinai area with the British and the French. It was 3 armies fought against Egypt, but after 3 months we go back to Israel and settle like this. This was the situation till 67, and by this 19 years, the world never officially, but actually accepts that this is Israel. Up to now, no any document, legal document, others says that this is Israel. For example, as you might know, Jerusalem was never accepted, even Western Jerusalem, as part of Israel. It's the capital of Israel, but no embassies there. There's no...
There used to be some embassies.
There used to be up to 67. The biggest one was the Dutch. No, of course, no America, no France, no any real country of Dutch, and then Guatemala and Honduras and some small area with Netherlands. We have a very good relation at that time, but after 67, even they. Now we have one embassy of they call it the United Christian Church Embassy. There is some organization like this that settle in Jerusalem. Of course, as you might know, every president of the United States before election say, first thing that I will do, transfer the capital to the embassy to Jerusalem. Okay, we'll wait. I know exactly when they will do it. A day after we signed peace agreement with the Palestinians. Not before. Don't believe any. Again, this is my way of thinking. Not before. Nobody will transfer it to Jerusalem, although even the Russian now said, maybe you said that Russian even said 2 days or 3 days ago that they against what we do in the West Bank, but they accept Western Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The embassy is still in Tel Aviv. So this is how we live, and by this the world accept, I would say, that this is the area of Israel. This is the West Bank part of Jordan, and the Gaza Strip is occupied area because the Egyptians never annexed it, as I say. And then came 67. Again, 67, Israel occupied Egypt, occupied the West Bank, occupied the Golan Heights, occupied Gaza, and this became Israel after 67. What? Gadalno. We came bigger. That's my name. And this is the area of what we have now. We held this for 6 years. 7 years, from 67 up to 77, because in 77, 79, we started the negotiation with the Egyptian, with giving back Egypt, all Sinai, but not the Gaza Strip, which is very, very important to understand.
It was Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, it was Yom Kippur War and other agreement. Doesn't matter how it came to be, but we settled it, but not the Gaza Strip. Why? Because the Egyptians didn't want the Gaza Strip. They didn't want the Gaza Strip not because of the problem, the Gaza Strip, but they say, this is not ours. We occupied it during the war, and according to the law, it shall be part of our ruling till we have a peace agreement. Now we have a peace agreement. We go directly to every centimeter they didn't have. We had a lot of discussion about this small area there of Taba. It's about 200 acres. And we discussed it for 3 years. A lot of lawyers, a lot of trouble, but fortunately without anyone shooting. But here they didn't accept. But here they say, Gaza, it's your problem, not ours. Deal with because they say this belonged to the Palestinians. At that time, in 88, only 10 years after the war, Jordan decided that it abolish all its claim for the West Bank. And she gave it officially to the Palestinian. It was never her. It was never her. They just annexed it illegally and they gave it illegally. This is how it came to be. So this is the situation that happened between after the war, and then it continued. Of course, came the Yom Kippur War, and this is what happened in the Syria after the Yom Kippur, the 73 war. We established with the Syrian an area which is controlled by the United Nations here. And this is the area that Israel occupied it. This is Syria. And again, this is not boundary. They say this officially is the line between the armies. This is officially the name of the line between the army, Israel up to here, Syria up to here. And when we discussed the peace agreement with Syria, of course, Syria want to go back to the line of 4th June 67, which is not the official line that established by the British, because when the British established, they had some area there that became that the Syrian occupied during the 48 war, and it became demilitarized zone. Again, I'm not going to speak a lot about this, but the main problem was in the line of the Sea of Galilee, because the British settled the line here that it would be all the time 10 meters from the water, because they thought at that time that we will build a dam here and the water go up to be a reservoir for the hydroelectric. So they said that when the water go up, it will cover the line, and it will cover the line. The lake would be partly in Syria, and if it be partly in Syria, according to international law, they have some share of the water. So they decided to have it 10 meters between the line and the shore. But the Syrian, before 67, occupied this area and settled themselves on the beach here, and even prevent us to fish here. And they want to have this the same as the occupied part of the El Hama, Hamad Gader area, the hot spring area, and other. So we discussed this. I can tell you by this that 4 Prime Minister of Israel accept the idea to give the Golan Heights back to Syria for peace. The only ones that didn't accept it, it started with Rabin, and then it go to Peres, then it go to Barak, and then it go to Netanyahu. Netanyahu also agreed to give the Golan Heights. The only one who didn't want to discuss it even was Sharon. When he was Prime Minister, we didn't settle where the boundary is. With this I can confess, because I was part of the Israeli team that deal with the Syrian. And we sat with the Syrian, but at the end nothing came to be. But this is the Golan Heights, which still held by Israel. You know that Israel in 81 annexed it on one side. That means they did what the Jordanians did for the West Bank. We annexed this as we annexed part of Jerusalem. And again, we never annexed it. We just put the Israeli law in this area. This is the way that they did it. We declared that Israeli law concerned to this area, but not with the West Bank, just to do. So this is Israeli-Egyptian peace. As I say, here is the line. We have line between, but at the end we have this line, and go a little bit there. Then, of course, in 82, we enter Lebanon. We finish with the south, we finish with the east. In 82, we enter Lebanon. We reach Beirut and other area, but after 2 years, we came back and we settle in this area, which is called security zone, but not like in Sinai, not like in the West Bank, not in the Golan. We never settled here. No one civilian settlement was established here. Only our army dealt in this area till 2000, May 2000. we withdraw our army. So for 18 years we were even here. And this goes back to the notion, as I said before, that Israeli, because they published there in Lebanon, we did it because we want the water of the Litani, according to the plan of 1919. So this was the argument that they said that we are here. So we even have this in this time, just to make it short. And then came the Oslo Agreement. Of course, the first agreement that we had with the Palestinians before we had Gaza and Jericho. And this is partly the map of the Oslo Agreement, which says that we have two or three areas here, Area A, Area B, and Area C. Area A would be controlled by the Arabs, security and civilian thing, which is mainly the main Arab cities there, Ramallah, Shem, and other area. Area B would be control of Israeli army, but the civilian would run by the Palestinian. Area C, which is mainly the brown area here, would be controlled by Israel, civilian and military. This is the area when we have the Jewish settlement in this area, and some areas that we call natural area. So this was the agreement. It was the first phase that had to continue into agreement, but it never came to be. By the way, we have here, I show it here, we have here a spatial area called the no man's land that established in 48 between Israel and Jordan, all the area around Latrun, which nobody entered this area, just cultivated this area for 19 years, about 44 area, a square kilometer. The Palestinians say in their map, this is the line. In Israeli map, this is the line. So we annex, not officially, but actually the area, and they say this is their area. This is a small problem, but still exists. So this is the Oslo Agreement which came there. If you will go there, this is how it really looks. It is what's going on. This is a Palestinian map. Of course, they show all this area as belong to them. But this is what they say. This is, as you see, Palestinian civil and security control. This dark green, and this is Palestinian civil control and share Israeli-Palestinian security call and Israeli constructed road and other area. It's there. So this is the situation officially that exists today. This is the area that exists today. In the gray area is the area of the Jewish settlement, as I say. Most of the Jewish settlement are in this area, and this is what the situation come here.
Is it what is called occupied area?
Yeah, this is occupied area. Well, the whole West Bank is occupied area. The whole West Bank, which we occupied in 1967. Now, some of us, this is it, says that what we occupy in 1948, it's not occupied. That means Lod, Ramle, Beersheba, that we occupied for the United Nations presentation of the Arab state. This is not occupied. But Hebron is occupied. Why? Again, you will discuss it. This is just the blue line that I described in the beginning between Israel and Lebanon. Again, it's United Nations line. It's go like this, and this is the Syrian line. It's there. This is the Shaba area that you might hear. But again, in this century, we start to build the fence, which is called the separation wall, or the separation fence, or the disagreement fence, or the security fence, or everybody call it according to his view, political view. But we built a fence mainly against the terrorist attack, the terrorist bombing that came, and we have this line that goes there. Partly it's parallel and built on the green line, but not here, and not here, and not here, and not here. Again, this is the no man's land. It's there, and we didn't finish it yet. So we have now this area here. This is Ariel, which is surrounded by line here, but the American didn't let us close it here. We want to have all this area, but the Americans say no. So this is the situation of the fence. Again, this is security barrier, or we call it now the barrier that exists between us and the Palestinian. This agreement in 2006, we left the Gaza Strip, we left all this area, we left part of the northern settlement that were near the city of Jenin. We left this area, and this is how things stand now in the area. Let's just finish this. You know what is this?
The wall.
No. Everybody, I'm sure that everybody was there, but didn't notice this. This is near the entrance to the United Nations building. Not the visitor area, but the official entrance of there. And these are steps which called Sharansky steps, by the name of Anatol Sharansky, the Jews there. And this is from Isaiah vision. They shall beat their sword into plowshares and their spears into prouting hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. You know this? This is what they put there in the entrance, but it's so hiding that nobody looks at this.
It's across the street.
And I say this is the main problem. It's just here is the steps that lead to the entrance of United, but most visitors came from there, not from this, so nobody look at this. We just were there 2 weeks ago and we saw it, and I say this is it. So this is the situation. What would come from this? Just this. And I say the future, nobody knows. There are a lot of suggestions that now I would say, like we all know, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Everybody has his opinion what to do. I would say the main idea is to put a line. Now there are 3 options, I would say. The extremist Arabs say, put the line on the sea. That means that all Jews from Palestine should go out of this area, and I can stay there. Why? Because they say, according to Arab, that every Jew, and this came to Balfour, that came before, or his ancestor came before the Balfour Declaration, could stay in Palestine. In Arab Palestine is a Jew. All others had to go back from where they came. The Israeli extremists put the line on the Jordan. That means all the area would be Israel. All others are still dealing where to put the line. Where to put the line and what to do with the Arabs of Israel, because we all accept, I would say, all people here accept the 2-state solution. But, and this is very important but, as I can see it, it was translated into Hebrew in different versions. It says, Shtei Medinot Leshnei Amim. That means 2 states for 2 nations, which is not 2-state solution. Because according to the Arabs and others, it would be 1 state for 1 nation, Palestine without Jews, because they want all the Jews to go back, all the settlement that go back. And in Israel, 20% would be Arabs. So Israel would be multicultural or 2 culture or 2 nation states, while the Palestine would be 1 state. So this is a problem that we still deal with this. What to do with the settlement? What to do with the Arabs in Israel? Because of this, I say that in the last 20 years or so, every 5 or 6 years there is a discussion, there is a meeting, there is a conference, the deal between, it started with Barak, with Arafat, even before in Oslo with Rabin, and then with Ulmert in Annapolis, and then, who knows?
Don't worry, Trump going to solve it.
This is one thing that this is the only opinion that I would put here as my opinion, unless you will ask questions. Never go to others to solve your problem. It's not a kindergarten that the headmaster had to solve the problem between. No, this is on us and on the Palestinian. It's not Trump, it's not the United Nations, it's not. This is our problem and we had to solve it. It can be solved. One thing that I learned through my, I would say, research and being part of the, when the two sides, when the two leaders, when the two governments want to have an agreement, agreement will be achieved. With one, don't come with full heart for agreement, as it was with the Palestinian, or even with the Syrian. I can tell you, the Syrian came to do peace with Israel. It was in Shepherdstown. I was there. We, at the last moment, our Prime Minister Barak decided not to sign the agreement. And the one who conduct the talks from Israeli side, General Sagi, wrote a book called The Hand That Was Frozen. And this was Barak's hand that was frozen before signing the agreement. We could have agreement with Syria. I don't know what we will come with this. But if two sides, this was the situation with the Egyptian, I was there was a lot of problem, but at the end, because Sadat and Begin decided we want to have peace, you experts have to solve all the problem unless we will solve it. It was the same with Jordan. There was a lot of problem. At the end, it was solved by the late Hussein, King Hussein, and the late Rabin. They solved the problem after some discussion between them, and it was done. When two sides want an agreement, it will be achieved. When one side don't surely want the agreement, because of everything, as we called, every fly would be an elephant. This is it. So when both sides decided that they would like to have peace, we will have peace. We can solve all the problem. All the problem could be solved. This I can say.
Why rush? What's wrong with the status quo?
I don't think that we like to live in, I would say, you might know it, in a frozen lake. By the winter, that in this minute it's still frozen. Tomorrow it could be break and we could. So, because every day something can happen. From our side, from their side, we don't want it. We don't want it. We want to have some solution. And I can say, as I know a little bit, every solution, maybe it's from your side, from our side, any solution that the leader will bring, both nations will accept. Some extremists in both sides will oppose it. But as a whole, both sides, the Palestinian and the Israeli, want to finish this problem. And it can be finished, if we want.
Thank you very much.